January 26, 2020, Joe here at Simple Life Show, where the simplest answers are usually the best. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all that good social media stuff to keep the rational voices out in the forefront where they belong. I was really thinking about what was the most important thing to really talk about today, and there was a lot of stuff going on. There was, I think there was an earthquake in Turkey. A lot of people died during that one. Of course, we have the impeachment hearings going on. We have a lot of stuff to really talk about. I was thinking about just breaking this down into a few segments, but I went ahead and just made a whole show out of it. I will try not to make it too long. So we're just going to go ahead and start off here. The first news story that I believe is important, that there's a new poll from the new Hill-Harris poll shows that 60% of Americans do not believe that any new information will be revealed during the Senate impeachment trial. Now, this is a kind of a misleading type of poll, but it does say something. It doesn't mean that nothing is going to be unveiled or revealed during the Senate trial. It really just means that the public confidence in showing anything new, because they're looking at really what the Democrats are, how they're acting, and how they're kind of stalling. As at least that's the way it was in the early going of the Senate trial. Of course, Trump's lawyers, they had a really good case yesterday, and they brought forward multiple different points. That's really nothing new. I'm not going to go over it or anything like that, but they really just kind of reiterated what was the main issues, that there wasn't really any quid pro quo. The Ukrainians never really didn't have any idea that there was any kind of delay in aid or anything like that. There wasn't any real evidence. The whistleblower has not really played a role in this entire thing, and that's who actually started this whole thing. Quite interestingly enough, well, as far as this poll goes, is obviously it shows that 60% of Americans do not believe that any new information will be revealed. So it says 61% Democrats who were polled thought something potentially explosive would come out. Independents and Republicans, individuals were more realistic in their expectations, with only 30 to 20 and 25% of them respectively thinking that new information would be revealed. I really don't think anything's going to be revealed in this. The Jay Sekulow and Trump's legal team, they have been pretty efficient in what they've been doing. Even MSNBC and a lot of the more liberal-based media have kind of conceded this point that going forward, it's really just Trump's trial to lose. There's really not much on the other side that's going to really compel Republican senators to switch their votes, especially when it comes to new witnesses and so forth like that. There have been some people saying that Joe Biden could be called here coming in the next week. That could be a possibility. But what was really interesting about this story is that there was a report that just came out that the alleged whistleblower, we don't know really what his name is, but we kind of do, overheard in 2017 planning how to remove Trump. Here simply, it's not a long article. It says Real Clear Investigations reporting that they have sources that undercut the entire impeachment saga. According to Paul Sperry's reporting, the alleged whistleblower was overheard conspiring with one of Representative Schiff's now members, Sean Misko. The alleged conversation occurred weeks after Trump had been sworn into office. Sean Misko, at the time, was serving in the White House on issues of foreign policy and national security, along with the alleged whistleblower. Here, importantly, Real Clear's sources on this report state that they weren't just bent on subverting his agenda; they were plotting to actually have him removed from office. Another one of their sources claimed they didn't like his policies. They had a political vendetta against him from day one. Now, this is really kind of nothing new when it comes to, partisan politics and stuff like that. And we're going to actually get into that a little bit later when it comes to some other topics that we'll be talking about. But as far as this goes, as far as the Senate impeachment trial, I know no one's really watching this. It's super boring, and we all know how it's going to end. It's like watching an episode of the Scooby-Doo. We all know it's not really a ghost. We all know that they're going to find some creepy old man that's behind everything that is pulling the strings. Maybe that's what's going on here. Who knows? But moving forward here, if you weren't already well aware that AOC is, I'm not going to say she's fake or anything like that, because that's just my opinion. I don't think she's very smart. I think she has been very explicitive when it comes to her lack of knowledge about foreign policy, especially when it comes to Israel and Palestine. But this is really about her foreign policy knowledge. AOC is obviously campaigning for Bernie, has been doing so for a little while now. She has recently stopped over in one of his Iowa campaign rallies and did not mention his name even once. I do have a little bit of video for that. I think it's kind of funny. She's being heralded and talked in by Michael Moore, who sounds like he's completely out of breath. This guy really needs to go on a diet. He looks very, very, very unhealthy. I'm just saying that as a human talking about another human who I am concerned about. I could care less about his ideologies. He sounds like he is on the verge of a stroke or a heart attack or both simultaneously. Of course, he has been a very vocal AOC supporter for a long time. He has actually been with her ever since she was on her campaign trail, if that's really what you want to call it. But yeah, when she comes out, it just seems to me, I'm just going to play a really quick clip, but it just, she doesn't mention Bernie. It's all about her. And it really sounds like the beginning of a Saturday Night Live, show. And you'll know what I'm talking about, when I play this.
What that's going to guarantee, and I tell you from my lips to whoever you believe in's ears, that we are going to give President Sanders a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. We're going to do that. Yes, we are. I promise you, I believe this in my heart of hearts. And I want to bring out on this stage the person that has inspired this revolution, the person that has made, as Bernie said, more of a difference than any first-term member of Congress, perhaps in the history of the United States. Let's give her a big Iowa welcome. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC.
Tú nos dices que debemos sentarnos, pero las ideas solo pueden levantarnos, caminar, correr, no rendirse ni retroceder, ver, aprender, podemos pegar, absorber. Nadie solo puede.
Iowa, are you ready?
Para todos.
We got 10 days left. Are you ready? Thank you. Thank you, Michael Moore. That story that he told is very true. I was running for office. This was before my primary. And for some reason, Michael Moore's team reached out to our volunteers and to our movement and was like, hey, can we interview you? And I was like, how'd you even know that I'm out here?
Yeah, so I just kind of left it there. She kind of drones on for a matter of 5 to 10 minutes or so. There's several speakers at this rally. She's just one of them. Of course, Michael Moore talks a lot about Bernie Sanders because he's a huge Bernie Sanders supporter fan. This is no secret. AOC says that she supports Bernie Sanders, but she doesn't really talk about him that much. Feels kind of sorry for Bernie Sanders that he's having these people go on the stage and they just kind of want to start their own 2024 election bid. And this is not a joke. AOC wants to run for president in 2024. I don't know if she's actually serious about this. There's been a lot of rumors about this. I'm just going to let that kind of stand as it is. My wife told me about this whole AOC not mentioning Sanders. She said that was hilarious. You should talk about it. So I said, okay, so I'll talk about it. I think it's kind of funny too. But I think we're kind of beating a dead horse here. On to some not better news, but more important news. The coronavirus is getting worse. If you remember that I did actually a video not too long ago, a couple days ago, actually, about the coronavirus when I first heard about it. And I was warning that the CDC and the World Health Organization was sorely unprepared for this type of virus in this country. China is very unprepared for this type of virus. In fact, hundreds of people have been, I guess, contaminated, infected. The death toll has reached 56. This is probably the latest that I have actually seen on this. It says hundreds of medical personnel are being deployed to Wuhan, China, and affected areas to treat the ill and stem the outbreak. Now, we also see a lot. I think it's actually 3 cases here, and I believe 64 are actually showing signs in this country alone. There has been more in other countries, including Australia. We'll actually look at a map of, I believe it's China here, where I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here. There is a map here of China. Let me go ahead and put that on the bigger screen so you can take a look at this. So this is a map of China, obviously mainland China, and this is the Wuhan coronavirus. I will actually put a, this is from GIS and data.maps. I will go ahead and put a link in this in the description so you can see this. This is updated every few hours. So we hear here confirmed cases by country region. We have mainland China, 1,900. There's actually been reports that China is actually not reporting all of these. So there could actually be tens of thousands of people that are infected with this coronavirus. In Thailand, there's 7. Hong Kong, 5. Australia, there's 4. France, 3. Malaysia, 3. Singapore, 3. South Korea, 3. Taiwan, 3. Japan, 2. Macau, 2. And U.S., 2. Of course, these... and Vietnam, Nepal, 3, relatively speaking. And we also have some graphs here at the bottom. Now, this probably hasn't been updated in the last 2 hours. Let me see. Let me just try to update this here. See if any of this has changed. So this was updated a few seconds ago. So none of the numbers have really been updated. But we see here there's epicenter Shanghai. The Wuhan region. Okay. So a lot of these, believe the actual Wuhan region is right. I believe it's right here. I think it's somewhere in South Midland, China. That's where that's located. I'm pretty sure. But there has been a lot of cases all over China right now. So some are saying that they are not reporting this correctly. In fact, they are having a lot of problems controlling this. So we'll actually watch a few clips and get a better idea of what's really kind of going on there.
Experts and researchers tonight with a startling suggestion. China might be undercounting by a factor of 10 the actual number of cases of the new coronavirus. Not intentionally, they say, just because they are so overwhelmed in China. Officially, China has nearly 1,300 cases, 41 deaths, 2 confirmed cases here in the U.S., 63 suspected cases. Meanwhile, in our area, health officials now prepping for possible cases here. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Diana Rocco.
There are no known cases in New York City.
And while that may be true now, 4 people are under suspicion of the coronavirus in New York State. 1 has tested negative. For the 3 others, tests are still pending. Wuhan, China is the epicenter of the deadly virus. Video posted on social media from a hospital in China shows packed hallways with what appears to be bodies covered up. The illness has now spread to at least a dozen countries and killing at least 41. In the United States, 2 confirmed cases, but 60 more suspected in as many as 22 states. A woman in her 60s who returned home to Chicago from the outbreak's epicenter in Wuhan is now in isolation.
This is a single travel-associated case, not a local emergency.
The first patient diagnosed in the U.S. hospitalized in Seattle, where doctors are using extreme caution.
We weren't sure about the degree of contagiousness. We certainly did not want it to spread, so we used the highest level of protection that we have available.
China has stopped all flights coming from the Hubei province, and Shanghai Disney is closed until the emergency is over. The U.S. State Department has issued a travel advisory for all Americans going to China. Here in New York, the city thinks doctors will eventually see the virus.
So that is the mainstream, what the mainstream kind of want to let you know about this whole thing. As we know, the mainstream media is not so much trying to keep everyone in the dark. It's trying to mitigate a lot of panic, especially here in the U.S., because we know that people in the U.S. can't handle a lot of panic. People have a really nasty habit of jumping off buildings, figuratively speaking, sometimes literally. But with this, with this whole kind of, I'm going to go ahead and just call it a pandemic over in China, because they're having problems controlling this. It's killing a lot of people, probably tens of thousands of people so far, because of the issues. And a lot of the issues that what I was speaking about in my last video were the close proximity of a lot of the poultry products and a lot of animal byproducts and a lot of animals in case in general with the dense population of China. This causes a lot of issues with the spread of any kind of pathogen throughout a society. Of course, the transition between from animal to human is hard, but when it does reach the human, it does have a chance of spreading even faster. And with our current state of technology and transportation, this is becoming a lot easier. Now, there's obviously a travel advisory ban to China and so forth, which I completely understand, because you don't want to have a lot of incoming and outgoing traffic from China. Obviously, no outgoing traffic from China. I don't see why anybody would want to be going to China right now. But there has been a lot of videos from social media as well, kind of showing a little bit more of a look inside of China, and we'll view that now. So we see kind of an intimate look inside of China right now. There's a lot of video from social media. A lot of people are posting stuff, especially inside of the hospitals. There was actually I don't have a clip of this, but there was actually a clip of a woman eating a bat. This is not something new that's in China. I believe it's a delicacy. They're known for doing this kind of stuff. A lot of stuff that in this country we might see as kind of gross, but it's something they do over there. I'm not going to bash it or anything. I personally wouldn't do it, just simply because of this problem right now, is that we have a lot of issues with pathogens leaping over from animal to human very easily, and a lot of it has to do with sanitary issues. A lot of it has to do with just eating the wrong types of animals that are known for carrying this type of stuff, not preparing things to I'm not going to say FDA standards, because they don't really have anything like that. I believe they have some sort of thing over there in China, but it's not, I believe, up to the standards as we are accustomed here in the United States. So this is obviously some. They're actually even blaming the eating of the bats to this spread of coronavirus. That could be a case as well. We really don't know a lot right now. All we know is this is really exploding. And when I saw this, I normally you do see a lot of these things happen. Oh, there's a new virus. Things happen several times a year where there's like a new type of like mini epidemic and stuff like that. New viruses are being discovered all the time. But for some reason, I was like, yeah, this seems like it's very important, and that's why I reported on it right when I found out that there was one case here in the United States. I believe it's going to get worse. I hope it doesn't, but for some reason, I have a kind of a weird habit of noticing a lot of trends, and this one seems that it was very important. That's why I brought it to you, because I think it's going to be very important going forward. But also very important, what China is starting to do is they're actually starting to use a lot of these HIV drugs as part of the treatment plan for the Wuhan virus. which is very interesting. China is using HIV drugs as an ad hoc treatment for pneumonia caused by the novel coronavirus while the global search for a cure continues. The Beijing branch of China's National Health Commission said that a combination of lopinavir and ritonavir sold under the brand name Kaletra and Abevi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is part of its latest treatment plan for patients infected by the virus, which has killed at least 56 people in China and sickened more than 2,000 worldwide. The NHC said that while there is not yet any effective antiviral drug, it recommends patients be given 2 lopinavir and ritonavir tablets twice a day and dose of alpha interferon through nebulization twice daily. I'm not going to read too much about this because I hate saying medical terms because I always mispronounce them, but at least they're doing something about it. But it's really hard for mainland China right now because they're just so inundated. It's a very urban environment, and when you have a lot of people sick, it becomes very, very hard to deal with it. This is just another article here about the type of what China is doing for the coronavirus. And, just as a word of warning for everyone out there, I know that there's only 2 cases, but there's several dozen people who are having a lot of the typical symptoms, I guess, of this coronavirus or Wuhan flu, whatever you want to call it. Just be safe out there. Use your head. Don't wash your hands and stuff like that. Use general sanitation types of preventative measures. Just to keep yourself safe and stuff like that. Don't freak out. I don't think this is going to really turn into something that is going to wipe out humanity or anything like that, or turn into a mass-wide pandemic. It could, but I think that we have a lot of good preventative measures in this country. We do need to spend more money as far as the World Health Organization goes, and the CDC is concerned. They need more funding to research these type of things so we can be prepared for them. So moving on, this is something new. We haven't heard from Russell Simmons in a while, but as we know, Russell Simmons and Oprah Winfrey have always been close throughout the years. Russell Simmons, if you don't remember, back, I believe, a couple years ago, it could have been actually as early as 2016. I think it was 2017 that he was actually 2017. Russell Simmons was accused of rape, sexual misconduct, or whatever you want to call it, sexual abuse in general against a person. We see this all the way back, actually back to 2013. This was a story, if you don't remember, about Harriet Tubman, and it was kind of like a mocking type of thing, where there was a sex tape involved and there was a slave master and stuff like that. I'm not sure where Russell Simmons really got his material from, where he decided he wanted to go down that road, but it does kind of show where he kind of saw women in general. I mean, I'm not saying that, he's innocent or guilty at this point, but at this point, we can say that there needs to be a lot more looked at, and this is just a little bit more inclusive, a little bit more of a idea of the mind of Russell Simmons. I'm not going to pretend like I know his mind, though. But this, like I said, this started back in 2017. Writer Jenny Lamette, Russell Simmons sexually violated me. This was back in 2017. That's when all his troubles started. Further down 2017, Russell Simmons removing himself after second allegation of sexual assault. And then finally, it was back in the end of 2017. So they all came in succession, like one a month or something like that, where they had accused Russell Simmons of rape and sexual misconduct and sexual abuse and so forth and so on. There's been a lot of women that have come forward in the name of protecting the women who are coming out for Russell Simmons. What's kind of interesting, though, Russell Simmons, like I said, he's had a long history of being friends with Oprah Winfrey. And he had this book on Russell Simmons on how you can get rich. This was back in 2011. And he became a bestseller with the help of Oprah Winfrey. There was also a show on the Oxygen Network. We obviously know that the Oxygen Network is the Oprah Winfrey Network. This was running Russell Simmons. This was a short-lived, I think, one season basically of Russell Simmons and the women who basically worked under him and so forth. Kind of ironic. I thought it was kind of interesting to include that. But what's really interesting though is this one. I guess it looks like it's from lipstickalley.com. And this was a Twitter post from back in 2017, I think it was. And it was about hunting ground filmmakers working on Hollywood sexual assault documenting Variety.com, so forth. He says, well, isn't this interesting? This article from 2 years ago says that the focus of the next project would be abuse in Hollywood, such as Harvey Weinstein. Instead, it turns out to be exclusively produced by Oprah Winfrey, and it focuses on Russell Simmons. So maybe what happened here, and I'm just kind of throwing out that maybe since Russell Simmons and Oprah Winfrey are very close, maybe this is why that happened here recently. Yesterday, Russell Simmons' accusers say Oprah Winfrey erased victims of Sundance documentary. So she had a interview with her longtime friend Gayle King, and she's been on her show and vice versa a lot. And basically what she's saying in this interview is that she has removed herself from this type of project because she was concerned about the authenticity and of the accuracy of this whole thing. Alexa Norton-Jones was one of the original alleged victims of Russell Simmons. And she also appears on The Record, which is was, I guess, is and was the documentary about sexual misconduct from the music mogul Russell Simmons. And she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Why? Because she was basically erased from the documentary, and her name was changed. Her name was changed to something different here. If we actually read forward here, we can see it was changed to something. Alexia Norton Strong, and she referred to her, Oprah Winfrey referred to her on several occasions as a different name and said that she was kind of bowing out of the project. Of course, she's the executive producer, so whenever she does that, the whole film goes nowhere. Apple actually pulled out of the whole thing, which made it a complete flop. So it's going nowhere now. So this kind of begs the question, is the relationship of Russell Simmons and Oprah Winfrey causing a lot of these things, or has it caused her to back out of this? I thought that was very interesting, and I think this is something that is happening a lot in Hollywood. There's a lot of people scratching backs and a lot of people kind of covering for each other, and I think it's just I think it speaks for itself, So moving forward. This is nothing new. This was actually on the 21st. I thought I would say something about it because, I don't hate Bernie Sanders. I know that I talk about how much I dislike socialism, the idea of socialism, the dangers of socialism, and so forth. But Hillary Clinton has come forward and has kind of ripped Bernie Sanders one over the mass media, saying that nobody likes him. And we have I think we have a little clip of her actually saying this or something like that, but we'll watch that and we'll talk about it.
Leashing on her one-time rival, Bernie Sanders. Clinton, in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, tearing open old wounds from their protracted 2016 primary that pitted Clinton against the independent senator from Vermont. He was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done. Senator Sanders today unfazed by Clinton's comments.
What's your response to that?
On a good day, my wife likes me, so let's clear the air on that one. Right now, today, I am dealing with impeachment.
Why do you think the secretary is still talking about 2016?
That is a good question. Ask him.
The diss from the most recent Democratic presidential nominee comes as Sanders consistently polls at or near the top of the Democratic pack. It's just the latest dust-up for the senator. There was that clash with fellow progressive Elizabeth Warren, and Sanders now apologizing after a campaign surrogate wrote an inflammatory op-ed about Joe Biden. Sanders tonight fighting fallout from this presidential race and the last. Jeff Bennett, NBC News, Washington.
So what I really think is really what's going on here is not so much. Now, a lot of this has caused a lot of problems. A lot of people kind of kind of, I'm not going to say freak out and stuff like that, but yeah, they kind of, a lot of people take the social media and they kind of get their woke on or whatever, and they want to feel like they're personally insulted. I really, honestly, I wouldn't care about this if you were Bernie supporters. Honestly, I think you should like it. And the reason why is because whenever Hillary Clinton or someone at we call the utmost or the upper echelon of the elite starts to rip apart someone, you know that they are probably doing something right and they are winning, as Charlie Sheen would probably say. They're winning. And we see that, I'm obviously a Trump supporter. I'm probably going to vote for Trump, but the person that I fear the most is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has the most, the most chance of beating Trump. Trump is going to literally demolish everyone else, I believe, besides Bernie Sanders. He's going to have a problem with him. And that's something I'm concerned about. Now, what I would like to see in my own personal utopia is that Bernie Sanders actually comes out with a good plan, to kind of calm the fears of communism and socialism and stuff like that. But we all know that Bernie Sanders is a socialist, that most millennials right now are in favor of communism or socialism or some sort of variation thereof. I believe that socialism always leads to communism in one form or the other. I just don't think it's a good idea. However, I do believe that our tax dollars should be appropriated correctly. We should stop wasting so much money. More of this money needs to go to better programs for the poor. We need to be investing in our people as much as possible. We need to make healthcare as cheap as possible, if not free. I think that we need to do something with Medicare and fix Medicare and make it more accessible to more people. This is obviously easier said than done, and I'm probably on the same boat with Bernie, where I'm saying, yeah, all these things would be great, but how do we do them? Bernie Sanders was actually, I don't have a clip of this, but he was recently interviewed, I think, by one of the major mainstream news networks, and he just simply doesn't know how he's going to pay for it. He does not want to admit how much it's going to cost, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people that lose jobs. This is unfortunate, but it's something that's going to happen. Anytime you have any kind of changing society, you're going to have industries that are going to be falling by the wayside. This is something that we really need to understand, and we need to stop demonizing people that say this type of stuff, because we're not making Model Ts anymore either. Those that made all the parts for Model Ts are out of business by now. There are probably some that they could probably still make that kind of stuff as for collectors and classic collectors and people that rebuild Model Ts. But as far as making a living and being in the industry, it just doesn't exist anymore. Those that make, those companies that make that type of corded telephones and stuff like that, especially the ones with the big dials on it that you had to kind of push around and stuff like that. Those companies don't exist anymore. Companies that produce checks, they're going out of business as well. Eventually, some people still use checks, but very few do, and very few will in the future, if any. Certain industries are going to go out of business and out of style, whatever you want to call it. They're going to be unneeded, and they're going to be archaic and outdated. This is something that we need to just embrace and understand. And I know for a lot of people, the future is very, very uncertain and very scary. But we need to invest more in making these transitions better for everybody, not just the young people, but the older generation as well. To especially people that are in the workforce that are threatened. Their jobs are threatened by a changing environment and changing industry. I don't think coal is going to go anywhere for a long time, at least in the near future. I think that we should be looking towards nuclear power. We should be looking towards any type of renewable energy, because we simply cannot maintain a lot of these fossil fuels over the long run. I mean, for anyone to say that, they're simply either lying to you or they're just in denial of the whole thing. This isn't something about climate change denial. It's just about a changing industry that we need to embrace right now, and we need to make it easier. Now, if Bernie Sanders comes forward with a good idea, on how to do these things, and to do it in a kind of a centrist type of way that it kind of benefits everybody and it doesn't leave everyone out in the cold and stuff like that, then I would be more than happy to listen to him, and I'm looking forward to that. I hope he does get the nomination because I believe that Bernie could bring some good things to the table, and I know that's going to upset a lot of people. I'm not going to be voting for Bernie Sanders unless he really does come up with something good and Trump really drops the ball over the next half year to a year or so. I don't think that's really going to happen. But if you know who I am and if you listen to me for a while, you know that I have an open mind for certain things, and I don't shut anyone out regardless of political affiliation or because of the media, how the media wants to play them and stuff like that. I try to remain unbiased when it comes to that. But I know I have my own biases. Everybody does. So moving on here. This is kind of interesting. Obama, there was a documentary that's coming out. I guess it's just called Hillary, right? And and I guess it's really about the election, the 2016 election, which is obviously very interesting and how it all went down. But what was even more interesting is Obama called Trump a fascist during a phone call with Senator Kaine. And if you don't remember, Senator Kaine was the running mate with Hillary Clinton. He is the one that just was not, in my own opinion, was not a good compliment to Hillary Clinton. He was just a very bizarre character, in my opinion. And I think that he did not help the situation at all. He's not someone that you could really, really relate to. I tried to watch as much of it as possible. But the fact that Obama, I think a lot of this has to do with the whole birther movement that Trump started and stuff like that. And Obama was not really happy with having to give the reins over to Trump, which I can kind of understand. I voted for Obama twice. I voted for Trump. I understand there was some animosity there, if not a lot of animosity between Obama and Trump. They just really didn't get along. And the fact that he called him a fascist is really just kind of interesting. There was a lot of people that called Obama a fascist. I don't believe Obama was a fascist. I don't believe Trump was a fascist. I think that Mussolini was a fascist. I believe that that Hitler was a fascist. I think that anyone that wants to put the state in control of everything is a fascist, and that's a literal definition of fascism, where the state really controls everything. There's really not any. I mean, there's some sort of private ownership, but it's not really what we see here in the United States. All private industry is really run and controlled by the state in favor of the state, for the benefit of the state. The state is God, and we do see a lot of this fascist ideologies being interwoven into both sides as well, especially from the hard left that wants the state to control literally everything and control speech and to take away your guns and so forth and so on. But speaking of guns, I know this Virginia thing is continuing to go on right now, and that we are going to actually listen to a little bit of some of the ignorance that has come out of the Virginia rally. Now, we all know the Virginia rally went on Monday. There was no incident. The mass media really wanted to portray it as a white nationalist movement. I did mention that that they were going to start mentioning Charlottesville a lot, which they did. But it wasn't anything like that. You saw people of all different types of colors out there from all different types of states. It wasn't just Virginia residents. A lot of people from North Carolina, from other surrounding southern states, showed up to this rally in support of the Virginia residents. And basically, they were kind of expounding on what I've been saying this whole time, that if this goes down to Virginia, which it does look like it's going to happen, it could spread to other neighboring states, just like North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia. Other states like that surround Virginia, they'll take their lead of Governor Northam, and they'll enact their own stuff. So this was interesting. This was from actually Dana Lash posted this, who is an outspoken NRA member and spokesperson. So I'll go ahead and play that for you here real quick.
To do with mass shooting, and what we find is there's certain weapons that mass shooters prefer to use. They're basically the same kinds of weapons, modified weapons from weapons of war. And what they do is they kill a lot of people fast. So the goal in my legislation was to distinguish hunting weapons, weapons used for self-defense, weapons used for sport shooting, from weapons that are the the preferred weapons for mass shooters. And so what the bill does is it distinguishes basically the difference between guns that go like this. These are rifles. You use them to shoot an animal, and you can shoot very precisely with a rifle an animal. These are the guns that hunters use. They go like this, and you look down the barrel, and you can shoot very precisely. You can have a scope. Those are the kinds of things that hunters like to use. Mass shooters don't like things that go like this, because what that means is someone can hit the rifle butt against their head. Deer don't do this, elk don't do this, but humans trying to save their lives do this. It's very hard to shoot a lot of people fast that way. So the mass shooters use guns that go like this, all right? Pistol grips, things like that. And guns that go like this are widely inaccurate. That's why hunters don't like them. But mass shooters do like them. Because their goal is generally not to accurately shoot one person, like an assassin, but to shoot many, many people fast. You may know that in Dayton, the shooter got off some 75 rounds in less than 30 seconds, shooting 40-odd people, while the police were right there. That's what these guns do. That's why they're so useful in the military. You want to mow down an approaching army. They're not useful for hunting. They're also not useful.
Okay, so I had to kind of stop that. There was a little bit of kind of feedback and so forth, and it was kind of a feedback loop I was hearing on my end, so I didn't want to expose you too much to that, but that was about 90% of what this person said. Of course, he is one of the authors of the legislation that they are passing. They want to make sure that you know that it's for your own good, that they want to take away and limit your ability to protect yourself. They want to limit your ability to purchase guns. They want to limit you to how many guns you can purchase in a given month. They want to expound the background checks, which, I understand. That's one thing that I probably would agree with is background checks. There probably needs to be a little bit more. But the majority of the mass shootings out there, please understand that these are first-time occurrences. And we just simply don't have a lot of warnings, and where these people are law-abiding citizens in a lot of times, but there have been warning signs that we do need to pay attention to. So it's a double-edged sword a lot of these times. And I would agree with some of the background checks, but the red flag laws, that's kind of iffy because that's an invasion of a lot of your privacy, and there's a very slippery slope there, where you can be accused of something, you can have a lot of your rights taken away, and there's not a lot of recourse for you. What was really interesting, though, is that they didn't talk too much about the main bill that was going to be taking out a lot of these assault weapons. The assault weapons, they are terming as the guns with the pistol grips that you can shoot from your hip. I've never seen anyone really shoot an AR-15, AK-47, or any one of these so-called assault weapons from their hip in a mowdown, unless, even people that are doing these mass shootings, they're probably not shooting, their guns like that. A lot of these people are well-trained as well. They're not novices when it comes to shooting. So the whole idea that, these types of guns can't be used for hunting is completely ridiculous. And they are trying to say, well, if you want to protect yourself, use a shotgun. But the criminals out there, they have the AR-15s and AK-47, stuff like that. If they want to use that on you, then I guess you're just screwed because you only got one shell or two shells if you're lucky. Right now, if you have the type of shotgun that's a repeater and stuff like that, that's probably going to be an assault style type of shotgun as well, because it usually has a pistol grip and stuff like that, and they don't like pistol grips. They don't like anything that is going to be easier for you to protect yourself with. This has nothing to do with hunting. Just imagine all of these talks and these speeches and this propaganda that's coming out of the mass media, and these people that are trying to forward this legislation, they're trying to convince you that the only reason why you should have a gun is to shoot a turkey. And if you heard some of the people that were in the crowd, they were kind of giggling and stuff, and they were irritated. They had made a few comments that this isn't about shooting turkeys. This is about protecting yourself. People aren't upset about which guns they can use to shoot a turkey or a deer. They are upset because they want to have the option to use pretty much any gun they want. There's obviously limitations to this. I'm not going to try to protect myself with a nuclear bomb because, number one, that's going to be killing everyone around me as well. That's just totally ridiculous. I'm not going to use a tank to defend my home property either. That's completely ridiculous. And people that make those types of arguments are just trying to use straw man arguments to shut you up. And this, like I said, it has nothing to do with hunting or anything like that. But the Virginia rally was, like I said, the mainstream media kind of dropped the ball on that. They lied about the whole thing. But there was someone out there I'll have to give, I believe it was Blaze TV, who was out there during the Virginia rally kind of talking to some people. I'll play a couple clips here shortly.
So Virginia's an open carry state, obviously.
Yes, it is.
But you aren't able to get into the actual demonstration.
No, the governor got scared, declared a state of emergency, and debarred us of our rights to carry inside.
What is the emergency exactly?
He's scared. That's all there is to it, man.
Right here is where the actual protest is, so beyond this line right here, you can't go any further.
Actually, put up borders, fences. Suddenly, Democrats are for borders, border security. You know, I wish they would quit undermining our president's border security efforts. And I didn't see any of these peaceful protesters tearing down the wall, climbing over the fence. This was actually one of the most polite crowds that I have ever been with.
And the "Don't Tread on Me" flag.
Yeah, I'm definitely a gay Trump supporter. I'm here to stand up for Second Amendment rights because I'm from North Carolina, and Virginia's my neighbor. So if it can happen here, it's going to happen in North Carolina. Because we got Governor Cooper, and he's just as bad as Northam. But
that it's not peaceful, and that it was actually going to be a wild Nazi white supremacist rally.
Well, you see here, we're a very diverse group here ourselves.
You don't look like a white supremacist. I could be mistaken.
Not quite. You know what I mean?
Not quite.
There's a little bit of everybody here. There's male, there's female, there's black, there's white, there's Spanish, there's everything. Every color of the rainbow. You know what I mean?
So that was just a small smattering. Obviously, you can go to Blaze TV to watch the entire clip there and other videos from the Virginia rally. That was something that was very important to me to really talk about, and I'll continue to talk about the Virginia, the Second Amendment crisis that's still going on there, and it's going to continue to go on the more they try to forward this type of legislation down the throats of everyone. So moving forward here, this is just an article from the Washington Post here. This is just a reminder for a lot of the people out here that say Trump is a fascist. He's not a fascist, he's just a bully. We need to understand that fascism is anti-capitalism. And if there's one person that is 100% capitalist, it's going to be Donald Trump. We've known this our entire lives. He is the quintessential businessman. He is the one that breaks the rules. He's the one that lies. He's the one that is a bully. He's the one that gets the deals done and so forth and so on. He's not a very nice person. He can be a nice person if you're nice to him and so forth, and if you play by his rules and so forth. We know that Trump is not, he's not Obama. He is the anti-Obama. He is, and that's the reason why he was elected. People got tired of Obama and they decided to go to someone else. And that's all that can be said about that. But as far as him being a fascist, that is simply ridiculous. Trump is not a fascist. I beg to anyone to prove me wrong. If you really believe that he is a fascist, please, make a comment. Don't spread hate and don't dislike, my videos just because you think Trump is a fascist. I don't think he is. I don't believe with everything that he says. But I just don't see him being a fascist. Moving forward here, back in 2000, I believe this was 2009, The Root said that Barack Obama is the real Donald Trump. Of course, there was a continuing feud between Donald Trump and Barack Obama, as we have discussed earlier with the whole, Obama calling Trump a fascist before he was even inaugurated as the next president of the United States. We said he had to prevent that fascist from getting into the White House. But here the Root's saying that Barack Obama is the real Donald Trump. Maybe it was just a smash on Donald Trump. Maybe it was something different. This was back in 2013. I thought it was kind of interesting. This was from MSNBC, that rooting for Obama to fail since before he was even president. We see the same thing from Fox News as well, that the mainstream, if you want to call it lamestream media, of course, Fox News was called the lamestream media back then, and MSNBC was the source of real news. We see this over and over. Every time there's a new president, every time there's a new change in guard, we have this type of thing. We need to stop falling for it. We need to get our news from all types of news sources. We need to make up our minds what is real and what's not real, because no one is going to sit there and spoon feed this stuff to you. You really have to go out there and understand that there is a lot of propaganda. There is a lot of bias out there. They want your vote. They want you to only see part of the story. You need to see all of the story and make up your mind. If all Americans did that, we'd have a better world 100% overnight. Moving forward. It's from Daily Caller. This is going to be one of the last stories I talk about. Rashida Tlaib retweets unverified story that Israelis killed a Palestinian boy. As we know, the squad, part of the squad, Rashida Tlaib, they have been very vocal about their criticism of the state of Israel, and they routinely call them invaders of the Palestine state. We're not going to get into that. Of course, we know AOC doesn't really know too much about this. This is more along the lines of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. Of course, they were both banned from actually entering the state of Israel. I believe they were able to get through there on some other type of waiver or something like that because of their affiliation with a lot of anti-Israeli movements. And so here we have, it says here, Democratic Michigan Representative Rashida Tlaib retweeted a claim from a Palestinian politician that a Palestinian boy was kidnapped and executed. They said he was kidnapped and executed by a herd of violent Israeli settlers and thrown into a water well. There was only one part of that was actually partially correct, that the Palestinian boy was not alive and he was in a cistern. And that's all that they know about it. So there was a response here. WTF Congress Modem just retweeted a false blood libel against the Jewish people. The Democrats at GOP. What is going on in Congress? There must be consequences for anti-Semitism in our nation's highest governmental body. Since the unverified claim was being promoted by several anti-Israel Twitter accounts. In fact, the boy was found by Israeli emergency service to have drowned in a cistern, which is just a collection of water, basically. Okay, so the Jerusalem Post reports. Now, this was from the original poster. My apologies for retweeting something that not fully verified. It seems that the news of his being kidnapped is not certain. No, it's not real. It's not true. It's not certain. It was false. It was a lie. Tlaib, however, has yet to apologize for retweeting the false story to her almost 900,000 Twitter followers. She was swiftly condemned on Twitter for many comparing it to the modern-day blood libel. So at Rashida Tlaib spreading a blood libel, there's no evidence that the boy was kidnapped and executed. He drowned in a cistern near his home. It was Israeli firefighters who found him, not Israeli forces assaulted search teams. Further, it says, sickening. Congressman Rashida Tlaib now spreading false blood libel against Jews. Are any Democrats going to be asked about this? I think a lot of this is going to actually be just swept under the rug like most of everything else. A lot of the anti-Semitic type of, especially the BDS movement and stuff like that the squad and a lot of the hard lefters in Congress are behind, that they are against. They want to basically throw a whole bunch of sanctions on Israel, further tariffs on Israel. Basically, I think one of them wanted to call, define the Jewish state as a terrorist state and stuff like that. There has been a lot of call for this type of stuff coming out of the leftists in Congress. This is something that we really need to pay attention to, because all groups need to be protected from all types of things. We do not need to be singling groups out based on some sort of heresy or hearsay or some sort of some false rumors. These things get out of control, and when people, especially those on the anti-Semitic side, when they see this type of stuff, it emboldens them, right? And they start believing everything they read, and then that leads to more anti-Semitic attacks. I think no one needs to be attacked. Everyone needs to live in safety. That's why we need a First and Second Amendment. That's why we need these types of weapons that are dangerous, right? We need these dangerous types of weapons because we have to protect ourselves against other dangerous types of weapons. Those types of weapons already exist. They're already out there. So we have to match fire with fire. That is just logic. And those who are on the anti-NRA and anti-Second Amendment groups out there, they need to understand that one bit of logic. Nothing else matters at that point. Violence and those types of things are going to continue to happen, but it's not because that law-abiding citizens have a way to protect themselves. Of course, Greta Thunberg's back in the news again. She was at Davos, Switzerland. I guess that she made a little small speech there. She basically said that no one's listening to her. Our house is still on fire, and she didn't expect anything more. That's all that can really be said about that. What was kind of interesting, though, was that the Secretary Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, his wife actually made a post about Greta Thunberg and how much she supported him, or her, excuse me. And of course, that was instantly deleted. I wonder why. The following was the actual deleted post. I stand with Greta on this issue. I don't have a degree in economics either. This is his wife actually talking, and then she's referring to what he said to Greta about go back to school and get a degree in economics, and then we'll talk. We need to drastically reduce our use of fossil fuels. Keep up the fight. I understand where she's coming from. I don't know why she even was compelled to delete that, but it's a fine tweet. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't have anything problem with Greta Thunberg. I think that she has her handlers, and I think that she is being used in a way for those that want to use the actual crisis that's happening with the climate for nefarious purposes, and that's the problem I have with it. That's the misconception a lot of people would have, that it's not about denying that the climate is changing. I know that stuff is shifting around and everything's weird. Okay, and I know this isn't just an anomaly. These things are happening, but we need to be careful with how much power we give the state on this issue. We need to be careful. We need to start allocating more tax dollars to go towards this type of thing. Instead of a lot of these wasteful spending on different types of programs that no one really benefits from. I don't know if you remember the $2 million bathroom that Geraldo Rivera was actually talking about here recently. I don't have anything about that, but if you want to look it up, it's hilarious. The government spent like $2 million on just a general Joe Schmo type of bathroom in the middle of a park. It's just ridiculous stuff like that. Finally, on a lighter note, Vogue has just recently come out with their 2020 fall menswear. I'm not really into fashion, but if the whole thing with fashion and art is that it's becoming kind of ridiculous. I know that it's reflective of society, and fashion and art are reflective of society, and we have a few kind of interesting pictures of some of these new and upcoming fashions, such as the following. So that's kind of interesting. Moving forward, we have some more stuff. I'm not exactly sure what that's supposed to be. I hope that I don't run into that anytime soon. If you're really into this kind of stuff, that's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to wear this type of stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to make fun of you or anything like that. Everybody has to express themselves in a different type of way. But my point in this is that art and fashion and so forth are basically mirrors that reflect the society that we live in. Everything's really changing. Is it changing for the better? I don't know. I think that some things are changing for the better. I would not call this fashion. I would not call it art. I would not call it beautiful. I would call it very, very weird. And I think the further we go in society, the weirder things are just going to get. Some people can say that the White House is like the weirdest thing ever. But the further we go, I think that we're going to see more and more of these reflections of our society in the art that we have. Remember just for a moment, and I'll leave you at that. Remember that a blank canvas is now art. There's been artists that have just not painted anything on a canvas and just wrote a single word like clay or water or something like that, just to invoke some sort of memory of something. And people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on that. That's the type of world that we're living in right now, where people are literally ripping other people off with this faux art and this faux fashion. It just doesn't make any sense. There's nothing, and the fact of the matter, a lot of these probably, especially since it comes from Gucci, a lot of these things are probably into the thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. It's absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense to me. It might make sense to you, and that's fine. I'm not going to down anybody for liking this kind of stuff. It's just not my cup of tea. But until next time, this is Joe's Simple Life. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.